Because truth and life are not free, you have to pay attention. But we try to take the magic and make it ours. What is my experience with it? What is my experience with it? Right? We try to make the experience ours instead of letting the experience be there and us diving into it. That blinds you from completely different perspectives and less identities and more essence. Hello, I'm thinking what's the best way I could start this first episode, but I guess I'll just say that something told me to record this video right now after a week of procrastinating about it, and so here I am in front of the camera. I want to talk to you about my first visit to an astrologer. I went to visit an astrologer and it was a really insightful experience, and it's worth discussing it because I think that some people could find inspiration to wanting to discover more about themselves through different practices. Also, I have smoked weed and I have this very particular relationship with weed where I consume it maybe about 5 times per year, or anyway not more than 6 or 7, and every time I do it, it's like I'm called to it, and then I have very insightful breakthroughs and changes of perspectives on different things that I was feeling stuck on, or that I was really overthinking about it. Overthinking in a sense that you obsess over it with always the same level of perspective, and all the thoughts are channeled into that same perspective about this thing that you're overthinking about, and that blinds you from completely different perspectives. And perspectives are what makes it real, right? It's the life force that we give to things, to the material world, is our perspective. Through our perspective, this becomes real. And so whenever I consume weed, it helps me do that. It helps me change perspective. And I smoked weed a couple of days ago, and I had very powerful discoveries about things that I was stuck on that I want to share as well, because they can be very powerful. And I can already feel myself going down random rabbit holes, as I usually do, spiraling down rabbit holes. And for the sake of this video, or of this podcast, I guess that's how we can label this, I don't want to do that. I want to keep it more practical, because I think that philosophy, let's call the art of pondering philosophy, the love for pondering philosophy, when it's explained to someone else, or explained, or anyway brought to someone else, I think that it needs to be kept as practical as possible, because I want this philosophy to have an impact, to have an effect. And so I can't word exactly how the philosophy comes to my mind when I'm explaining it to someone else, otherwise I'll be all over the place. I love to do that in my solo time, when I go and analyze, study, think, philosophize. I let my mind free, and then I write down a lot. But when I do these videos, I want to keep it as practical as possible. I have some notes here to make sure I don't forget anything, because I genuinely felt called to record this video about what these topics that came into mind. So I want to make sure I don't miss them. And yeah, I want to talk about these major breakthroughs that I went through. So I felt this calling to visit an astrologer, because astrology, I think that, well, it definitely doesn't define self, right? But for sure, knowing your blueprint, your cosmic blueprint, how the stars were aligned when you were born, and how can that influence your life, I think could be very important. Because why would you go against your star's blueprint, right? Why would you do that? Now you can use your free will through brute force for your whole life and sustain your whole existence purely through brute force. But if you ask me, I would rather flow into life. Flow meaning that I would like to follow the current of my blueprint, of my soul blueprint, which the stars can help me decode, so that I can live the most harmonic and impactful and conscious life that I can. I visit this astrologer, and obviously I had a lot of expectations, as we always do, but it was very interesting to realize how it has been affecting my life up to this point, and it highlighted certain things that I was maybe calling them negative about myself, that it put them in a new light, in being part of me and of my development. The way my astrologer framed astrology is very interesting. I never heard it before, and I think it makes complete sense, and it really grounds it into another level of understanding. She told me that the houses, it's like a theater, right? Astrology is like a theater, and the houses are the scenes of the play. The planets are the actors, and based on what house is this planet positioned on, this planet will have different characteristics of itself coming out as part of being an actor on this specific play, which is the house in this case. And when the planet shifts into another house, now this planet starts acting differently, starts bringing out different characteristics based on the new house, the new play in which it's now positioned. And we are the narrators of this cosmic play, right? And this makes so much sense. This grounds it into a whole new level of understanding, because we are the narrators of whatever it's happening in the stars, right? And again, this will not completely define your whole self, because I believe that the stars are part of yourself. They are part of the wholeness of yourself. So they don't completely define you, but they can help you a lot understanding about yourselves. And I want to make you a few examples. My generation, I believe, is millennials, and certain planets affect the collective of the generation, so millennials, Gen Z, and certain other planets affect you as an individual ego. And it's interesting to notice how the furthest away from us these planets are, the more of a collective influence they have. Whereas the more these planets are close to Earth, the more they are intimate to our individuality as an effect. And for example, Saturn, it's one of those planets that have a powerful effect on the collective consciousness of my generation. And Saturn is fun because it takes 30 years old to complete a whole cycle. So I'm 30 years old now, and basically Saturn just returned on the same place where it was when I was born. And Saturn is the planet of wisdom, is the planet of legacy. What do we want to leave on this material existence? And it's very interesting to see that this return of Saturn comes with an inner push towards inner wisdom. So I started asking myself so much, where am I aligned with my inner wisdom? What is even the blueprint of my inner wisdom? It makes you question if you are aligned with your purpose, if you are aligned with your vision, if you are aligned with your virtues, with your values, if you are living your inner wisdom also outside of yourself. And this questioning can bring so much, at times, suffering when we don't frame it the right way, because we end up putting everything under the lens of, is this my inner wisdom? Is this aligned? So the effect of Saturn return is this one, right? And maybe some of you out there also have been feeling this. Then we went through the North Node and South Node, which I didn't know about, and it's really interesting. Basically, the North Node and South Node are depending on the moon, and the North Node is telling you more or less where you are meant to go in this lifetime, where is your energy pushing you towards, or what is the overall path that you should follow in this lifetime. like in a big picture. Whereas the South Node is the energy that we carry with ourselves into this lifetime from past lives. And this energy is normally a type of an archetype of lifestyle, an archetype of energy that we have mastered already, right? Is our comfort zone, because we know very well how to deal with it. And our North Node, instead, it's new for us. It's our purpose. It's what we are meant to discover, right? And so we are not used to it. We are not used to leave our North Node. And so we are constantly pushed towards the blueprint of our South Node, because that's what we've already mastered. That's what we feel comfortable with. I give you an example. I am a Scorpio. I have a lot of Scorpio in my natal chart, apparently, and my South Node is in Scorpio, and therefore the North Node, which is always the complete opposite of the star sign in which your North Node is, it's Taurus. Now, Taurus represents financial stability, certainty, security, right? The body, the pleasure of living inside a body, of engaging with the material. Is very material, is very eradicated in the material, and it always looks for certainty, for groundedness. And a lot of Taurus are very wealthy people, are people who are very good in business, are very practical, are very mathematical minded, very reason minded. And whereas Scorpio is more about the fluidity of transformation, right? The going through changes, this is the path of the phoenix that is all about transformation and change. And transformation and change is the complete opposite of stability and certainty, because change it doesn't bring clarity, at least when you are in the process of changing. It doesn't bring a sense of stability, because change, it's not about stability at all, right? It's not about clarity. And it's funny to think that the Scorpio is also it also illuminates in the darkness. I don't know how to say the exact characteristics. It's like fluorescent, right? In the dark, it shines its light, and it tells you a lot about the path of the Scorpio. And it's interesting to see how in my life these have been playing a lot, because I've always questioned this pull of me towards more spiritual knowledge, more transcendental knowledge. And I was always trying to go back into the certainty of the Taurus energy, into how can I monetize this, how can I make a business out of this, very rooted into material, which has its powers and its places. Of course, it's very important to build systems that other people can benefit from, with which you can spread more light, more love, more God. But also, I wasn't letting myself completely go into the fluidity of my North Node, right? I was always comparing it with my South Node, which is my comfort zone, which is apparently what I have already mastered in my consciousness, in my soul journey, which is now meant to be more of a transformative journey. So that was very, very interesting to understand. And then there were so many other major things, like my willingness to be a father, to wanting to do a family, was also in the stars. And yeah, it's been definitely a very interesting experience, which I recommend to everyone to know their astrology. And about now, after this session of astrology, I was in a state of complete vulnerability, childlike vulnerability, I would say, where I wanted to take a break from the material world, not because of being tired or wanting to escape it. It was more like, okay, let me slow down a little bit, let me go into myself. So I took a day off from work, I smoked weed. Again, it called me, and I don't feel good when I smoke weed, right? I feel like somatically I don't feel good, but it always gives me so many insights. Less identities and more essence. I was trying to jump through all these different identities, because that's what the ego loves. The ego loves to feel like we are working towards boxing ourselves up into an identity through which the ego can make sense of the world, can feel like it has a grasp on the world, right? Because an identity is very recognizable. It makes sense to the intellect, to the ego, defining us through an identity, through a label. And so many times I felt like I was pushed to do certain things because of the identity that they brought to me. And now this identity can be wore not only so that my ego can and my mind can feel safe and secure in the identity, but also so that I could show it to other people and express myself through that identity, right? Sometimes for many different reasons, shadow reasons and also good reasons. And I realized that by wanting to live identities, you don't get the growth, you don't get the journey that those identities can give you. If you pursue a certain things because you want that identity, then all that is necessary for you to do is think about it. Because when you think about it, you are impersonating that. But taking action on that and going deep into that and actually get to the essence of it is a completely different thing. Because that requires a complete different type of effort. And why I say less identity and more essence, because this happens, at least to me, happened because I have so many different interests. I'm a child, little curious child. I'm curious about everything and I want to experience everything and I want to learn everything, you know. As naive as that sounds, I'm genuinely curious about so many different things. And so I was jumping around these different identities and I was fearing that by making choices, right? Choosing, that would limit all the other identities, all the other curiosities. But then you understand that your essence is the pot in which all these different interests are boiling. But you have to make sure that you place some effort behind those identities, those curiosities of yours, to make them become alive, to give them soul, to infuse them with your soul, right? It's not enough to just think about stuff. You have to imprint your own self into things, to make them yours, to make them part of your journey through life, to be able to enrich them with your focus, with your perspective, so that they can take a whole new life through your own unique lens of it. And that was one of the insights that smoking weed gave me. It made me slow down from my mind racing through all these different choices that I am apparently faced with or supposed to take. All these different identities that I wanted to grasp, right? I was racing so much that I forgot to be here. I forgot my essence. I forgot that there is no identities with here. The here gives you a stage for those identities to be played, right? You have to be here. And it's when I realized that we want to grasp every single moment, every single now with our mind, with trying to label it. Oh, this moment is this, and I wonder if this moment is leading to another moment which falls under what I think it should fall. And that causes a lot of stress because you're constantly trying to make sense of the present moment. What am I doing right now? What is this? What can I label this as? Instead of just being in the present moment, meaning that, for example, you're washing the dishes and you're not thinking about what you could have been doing, but you get lost in the moment of washing the dishes and of what it is, like how your hands feel while you do that. So many different examples of moments in which you should just live them instead of constantly trying to grasp them through the intellect. We try to take the magic into our mind. We try to eradicate the magic from the moment of what it is, and we try to use our mind to make sense of it intellectually. It needs to make sense, otherwise we don't allow ourselves to live that. Just a walk on the beach needs to make sense and fall under a idea that you have about what's walking on the beach like, instead of just walking on the beach and feeling the sand on your feet, the sound of the ocean, the breeze, right, the birds, whatever the experience is. But we try to take the magic and make it ours. What is my experience with it? What is my experience with it? Right? We try to make the experience ours instead of letting the experience be there and us diving into it with our heart instead of our mind. And that opens up such a level of presence and of freedom, really, of freedom of just experiencing reality as it is. And that was very interesting. And we need to pay more attention. We need to stay more focused. Because truth and life are not free. You have to pay attention. You have to stay aware. More than staying focused, because this word carries different type of energies. I'm not talking about productive focus, meaning a type of focus that it's engaged in bringing something out of ourselves, creating, right? The focus that I'm talking about here is more awareness, right? Is more always try to be as aware as possible. Try not to be lost too much in what your body is doing. Try to not be in autopilot too much, because you're gonna lose all the magic. And this was the first episode. I started this because I love to, my vision, my dream is to have a platform in which I can have incredible conversations with incredible people and to share streams of consciousness that I think can inspire and can interest the philosophers out there, people who are looking for something, for the light inside themselves, who are looking for transformation. This is what my interest is. I don't want to be another perfect, polished podcast, right? I'm generally filming from my caravan where I live now, and I don't even know if there's gonna be a single soul out there looking at this precise minute of the video. But if you did, that means so much for me. And I'm happy that we connected. And I invite you to reach out to me and let's have a conversation. Let's have conversations, because I want to have conversations. I want to share, I want to connect, I want intimacy. I crave intimacy. And that's what this podcast is all about. Having more intimacy.